how's it, everybody? And a warm welcome to the NFT show. I'm your host, Philip Kalinko. Before we get into it, if NFTs excite you like they do me and you want to learn more about the NFT space, remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you aren't already, follow me on Twitter with notifications on and join our Discord for real-time alpha. A reminder that nothing that's said is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and you should always do your own research. Tonight, we have got a very special guest. I've got Tom Youngs here from the Summer Club. Tom, welcome.
Look how big I look. Fucking hell. My mum would be proud.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I don't look as big as you, though. You look like an absolute... You look like a beast, mate. Do you play rugby? Do you play rugby?
No, I'm 40, man. I don't play rugby.
But did you play?
I used to play a bit, yeah.
I bet you did. What position did you play?
I was scrum.
Really? You were front row?
Yeah. So, guys, if you guys haven't seen Tom before, I just want to show you his YouTube page. Tom's someone that I really enjoy watching. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. It's Tom Youngs. His details are in the description of the video, and you guys definitely should be watching him if you aren't already. So, Tom, this is just an informal thing, my brother. We know each other through Cade, and I just thought it would be a great opportunity to sit down together and get to know each other. So tell me, like, everything about Tom. We want to know, Tom, what's your personal background? What is your background?
Dude, first up, like, can I just say thank you? Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. And I love doing these more than anything. I love, like, just being able to chat and have a conversation with people. This is the most fun type of content that I like creating the most, which is, nice and casual, keeping things light and not taking things too seriously, but ultimately just digging into people's stories and their lives and what gets them going with their interests, their passions. And thank you so much for having me on your channel. Likewise, I'm a huge fan. And we got to spend some time on Cade's show a few weeks back, which was really cool. That's where we got to meet. And man, great to hang again.
Thanks for coming, my brother. This was really awesome. Really, really cool. So let's start at the beginning, Tom. How old are you?
I am 34 years old. I know I don't look
34.
I don't look a day over 32, do I?
I was going to say 33, but you're close. And you're from the UK, is that right?
I'm from the UK. I'm from London. I'm in London currently. I was born in London and raised different parts of the UK. I went to university I did university for 7 years. So I lived in Scotland. I've also lived in Wales. So the various different kind of like countries in the UK, which is awesome. I've kind of lived in different cultures. I've lived in Europe as well, in France and in Austria. So yeah, but I'm back in London now, and I have been for the last 4 years. Been back in London for the last 4 years, and that's kind of where my location is. That's my kind of location. Home is London. I never feel like at home other than when I'm in London, which is weird because I didn't grow up here. I don't have family here. I just have I have a lot of friends. But yeah, London is especially in the summer. It's different for you guys. It's obviously winter for you guys. That's why Philip's wearing a fat old hoodie and I'm wearing a wife beater. That's the most heavy duty hoodie I've ever seen. You must be. Is it cold there? How are you guys doing?
It's cold.
Is it cold?
Well, listen, winter here doesn't get too cold, but we're in the middle of winter, right?
Got you.
So like it's probably about 3 degrees Celsius at the moment. It's nighttime. And during the day it will get to about 10 degrees. So it's not too bad. It's not like, freezing winters, but we're in the middle of winter,
Yeah, that's like same as that's winter here. That's the same kind of temperatures that we would have in like the middle of winter as well, kind of like 3 degrees at its coldest on a day.
I think when it's snowing, it makes it colder, So like it snows and then you got all this ice around you. Here we don't really get that. We don't really get snow. So it very seldom will get to 0 degrees here, But what's funny, Tom? When I used to watch you, I thought you were Australian because you always say mate. So I always thought you were Australian. Where does the mate come from?
That's a great question, mate. So it comes. I'll tell you because it is actually there's a reason why I say it. Mate is my favorite word. I say it a lot. I feel like it diffuses conversations with people. It kind of like takes things down a notch from formality, which can happen quite easily. So I like dropping in the old mate to kind of diffuse that a bit. But I learned that from someone. I learned it from, I maybe not learned it, but maybe it was inspired by we talk about rugby, so a rugby coach, the current existing rugby coach of the English national team, a guy called Eddie Jones. If there's any of you guys that like watching rugby, you will know who he is. He used to be the coach of the Australian rugby team, the Japan rugby team, and he's most recently been, and South Africa, and he's most recently for the last 6 years been the coach for the English rugby team. Rugby is one of my favorite sports. I wish I was bigger. I would have loved to have played it, but never could. But yeah, he is. When I look to guys who, one of my obsessions is with leadership and how to get the most out of people, and that comes from I've worked in lots of different industries. I love business. Business is the game that I love the most. I'm a sportsman. You'll see behind me, I've got lots of different pieces of sports equipment behind me, but I love competition. But the game that I like the most, and I'm learning that I love more and more every day, is the game of business, which is a never-ending game that you have to constantly learn the rules for. But I look at leadership as something that I think not many people do well. Not many people are very good leaders, from my experience working in lots of different types of businesses at different sizes across different sectors. And one of my leadership kind of inspirations is Eddie Jones. And the way he talks, he drops in the old mate word every third sentence. And he always speaks with a massive grin on his mouth. He is a ruthlessly competitive guy from when he was a player as a rugby, and he's brought that to his leadership. But he has an amazing way of diffusing tension. And when it comes to speaking to, whether it's the media or having a really high quality relationship, at least from what I hear from the rugby players that have worked with him, there's a very, very high quality personal relationship that he has with his players. But at the same time, he commands a huge amount of respect from a professional perspective. And I think that that's something that I have seen very rarely done with leaders that I've worked for. They can't do both. And if anything, like they fall down short at perhaps trying to do both. But at the end of the day, it always comes down to this is a guy who drives standards to the absolute highest, and he demands standards from people. But what that means is that people are willing to do anything for him. And he's demonstrated that by like taking multiple international rugby teams to World Cup finals, which is the top of the top when it comes to rugby. So yeah, a bit of a probably you're expecting you're probably expecting a more simple answer, but the reason is because he's my inspiration from a leadership perspective when it comes to business, and he's a guy that he's a tough competitor, but he's always smiling. He's also not afraid to dish it out. There was a video clip of him at the weekend. He got called out by an Australian. He's Australian, and he got called out by an Australian fan because he's the English rugby coach. And he got called out. This guy on the sidelines was like, "You're a traitor. You're a traitor." And Eddie Jones just went mental. He went up to, he's like, "Fucking come over here and say it to me. Come and say it here, mate. Say it here, mate." So that's a long-winded answer, but
I love that. It made me think of so much. You know, first of all, I thought that like parenting is like that as well. So I think that a lot of parents, you know, I've got three boys. I think a lot of parents try to be their kids' friends.
Yeah.
And that's a mistake. But I also think, you know, there's got to be that compassion with them. And they've got to know they can come to you with anything. So it is that mix of respect, and, you know, them being able to say, look, you know, they can see that, you know, it's not the time. But also that approachableness I don't know if that's even a word, but to be approachable to them and all of that. So I just thought of that when you were saying that about his relationship with the players, because it is very, very much like that. And then, I mean, I've been running a business for 20 years. So the business side for me is exactly the same. It's a very fine balance. On the one side, you do have to be genuinely compassionate, not just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And people pick that up, whether there is, that realness behind it. But at the other time, when it's time to work, it's time to work. And everyone needs to know who the boss is as well, because, so I love that. I think that's so cool. I really, really dig that. And then, so now we're sitting here. I watched your video on the Summer Club, which I was blown away. Okay. I don't do editing, nothing. I saw this video and I loved it.
Thanks,
really,
man.
really
Thank
loved
you.
it. And, that's what really got me interested in you, because your background before this is that you actually are a qualified dentist.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That's incredible to me, because I mean, that takes a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication. So let's talk a little bit about that. You finished school.
Sure.
You went to medical school.
Yeah, so a bit of a backstory is that because I think it's really important to just talk about context, because I think about this all the time. Big up to Cryptic Dan. He is my head of partnerships at the Summit Club. He is a climber as well. So like the guy actually is a legit climber. I like going down mountains, which is from the summit down. The dude likes climbing up them. But yeah, shout out to Dan. But yeah, the context is that I grew up in a family where both my parents were in the medical profession. And from a young age, I saw my parents work really hard. Both of them work really hard. And I saw the life that they were able to give us growing up as myself and my siblings as children. And I felt extremely privileged. And I felt like if I could provide that level of support to my family, that would be amazing. And I think I had this natural curiosity. But I think the curiosity was, in hindsight, if I look back at it, it was led because that was what my family did. So my curiosity in medicine, in biology, and science was because of what my parents did. As it turns out, I'm a little bit older. I have interests in so many things, so many other things. Like I said, like business as itself as a game is something that I'm like obsessed with. Art, culture, fashion, like all of those things I love. And I think it goes to show it shows how people's childhoods and how they look up to their parents can have a material impact on the direction in which you take. I don't know if you like what your kind of story is growing up, but if you can relate to that at all.
Very much so. My dad was a chartered accountant and an entrepreneur, but I studied accounts for 3 years. I didn't finish. I ended up dropping it as my major because I realized exactly that it was more his life than mine. I carried on and I finished. I pivoted to marketing. I got a BCom degree in marketing, but in the beginning that was accounts, and I just hated it. But I also looked up to him so much, and also the life that he provided us, that I thought, this is the way you do it. But there's many ways to skin a cat. So I identify completely.
Very interesting, and I think like myself and you grew up in different eras. Right. Like when I was 15, and I was making the decision of what my career was going to be, which, again, looking back is absolutely fucking stupid. I'm sorry if I swore, by the way.
No.
I'll try to, I'll zip it from now on. But yeah, I think it's a very twisted thing that we have children who are, I had to choose to do medicine at the age of 14. 14 was when I had to make a forward thinking choice to be like, okay, for the next 3 years, I'm going to study science only. I'm not going to study anything else. This is how the British education system works. And I'm going to apply to medical school. And that's my life. And you make that decision as a 14-year-old. Unbelievable that we expect children to make decisions like that that age. And same with you. And it's so interesting you have this that feeling. It's funny because I look back at your experience and I have this weird envy, because I think about how I consider in the game of business, which you are way more so much more experienced than I see like accounting skills and financial literacy skills as one of the most valuable skill sets when it comes to entrepreneurship, and something that I feel is I'm very extremely weak in, and I wish I had like a stronger foundation. And I don't know how you feel about that. Like, do you feel, even though you did a few years, do you think that helped?
You know what the thing is? I think that there's many ingredients from a business perspective that's needed, a lot. So you've got the human resource side, which is huge, employees, and
Absolutely.
managing them and making sure that they happy and that they, are in a place where they want to return. And that's one of my biggest challenges is finding and retaining good employees, right? Then you have the marketing side of it, which is one part of it. Then you've got the sales, the after sales. Then you've got the accounting and the finance, which is one part of it. So no one is going to be a master of all of those fields. And the thing is that whether you need an accountant, but you're able to do the creative stuff, and maybe I need marketing or whatever, a creative guy, but I'm able to do a bit more of either way, we can't be everything, right? So I don't know. I think it's like the grass is always green on the other side, from the perspective that you can hire accountants and they can take you through it very basically. So I do think it holds me in good stead, but I never finished. I mean, I can't do my books myself anyway. So I never finished accounts. I pivoted to the marketing side, but I think I think the biggest thing is knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and then hiring the right people to help with your weaknesses. Surrounding yourself by people who are better than you at those things.
And that's and I come at this like with a complete caveat that unlike Philip, like I've not done anything. I haven't raised a family. I haven't built a business. I genuinely have no idea what I'm talking about, but I have an interest in learning and everything. Thanks for the Tash love, by the way. Every single one of the entrepreneurs that I look up to, the biggest thing that they say is that their role as the entrepreneur at the top of the tree is HR. Like you said it's like that is finding talent, finding good people to do those things. Because if you find talented people to do those things, you can, well, at least this is from what I've heard, is that you can to some extent set it and forget it and just be there to provide guidance and strategic guidance, and think about the high level stuff. So yeah, it's one thing that I'm thinking about a lot is, okay, well, what do I do? What do I need to be doing to be attractive as a business, as an entrepreneur, to be attractive to high level talent? And then there's, the whole case of like finding it. But it's interesting that you say that, because everyone I look up to, whether it's Gary Vee, Alex Hormozy, they all say they're just in the HR game, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that signing up. But I'll tell you one thing that, my brother-in-law is very astute and a very astute businessman here. And something he said to me that I have practically put my mind to trying to achieve is that higher management. So like, it depends on the structure and how big it is, but let's just say the owner of a small company, which is pretty much me, my focus should be 6 months to a year and a half ahead. That's what I should be looking at every day. And there has to be people under me who are focused on 3 months to 6 months. And then the bottom team is focused on the day-to-day, answering the inquiries. And if you're sitting there answering the inquiries all day as the owner, you're never ever going to know where the direction of the company is going for, the long term. With that said, everyone starts somewhere. And in the very beginning, I was the driver, I was the receptionist, I was everything. I used to pretend, I would say, oh, let me just check with accounts, if the payment's been received. And then I quickly log into my bank, because you don't want people to think you're a one-man show. So you do have to start somewhere. And I do think that it's very important to have done a lot of the jobs so that when you are recruiting, you do know what is required for each position. But that was something that really stuck with me, that ideally your long-term plan should be to be able to focus on the long-term direction of your organization. And that really made sense to me. But I just want to say one thing on the dentist side. I still think that nothing happens by mistake. And I do think that it's incredible to have that as a backup. So that might give you the courage to be able to go and follow your dreams and your passions, that knowing that if everything goes to hell, there is an incredible backup that's in place there. So I don't think it's in vain. And it just, one more thing, it reminds me of my cousins. So my dad's brother's son, he's got 4 sons, 3 of them incredibly successful, really, really successful. My dad's older brother, so they all in their 45s, 50s. But the other son is so happy, finished as a lawyer, and then tore up his papers and said, now I'm going to go live in the bush. They're Australian. He lives with the Aborigines. He massages them. He's an amazing healer. And he's been doing this for 25 years, but he's got that degree because that's what his parents made him do.
Yeah.
And he's following his passion, you know. But it just made me think of Ryan a lot because he's the happiest guy you'll ever see. He's got a life that's incredible for him. It's full of purpose. And he hasn't used his law degree once at all.
Exactly what it's all about. And I think, I can relate to that. When I made the decision, I practiced for a year and a half, but the reality is that I made the decision that I wasn't going to be a dentist halfway through my degree. So I did 7 years at university, and in my 4th year, that was when I decided that I read some books. It was when I read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And it was the first thing that reframed, I suppose, life values for me that I hadn't considered before. The major one being time and freedom around time and your choices and on what you want to do, where you want to do it, and how you want to do it. And I hadn't thought about that. I really just hadn't. I was in a trap of, especially when you're young, it is exam, finish the exam, next exam, finish the exam, next exam. And that was my life from the age of 14 until 24. It was just exam after exam after exam. It never ended. I haven't done an exam for 7 years now. And the last time I did one, I was very happy that I knew that was the last one I would ever take. And I do not miss them at all. And I knew that I was never going to go back. And, you say having because people say this all the time. They're like, well, if it all goes to shit, you can always go back. The truth is, I can think of 40 to 50 jobs off the top of my head, which I would prefer to do over dentistry. And a lot of them would pay more than being a dentist and would have more time freedom, more freedom of where I want to work. And I would be more content with my life and my lifestyle. The truth is working in the medical field is it's the most stressful jobs on earth. It doesn't get more stressful than dealing with someone else's life. And I felt that stress very, very deeply when I was practicing for a short period of time, for a year and a half. And I made the decision that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to teach myself about business, but the problem was I was 24 when I made that decision. I didn't have a clue about business. I didn't have a clue. So I've spent the last 7 years working to that. Big up, Dr. Tom.
Yeah, we got Kate. I love Kate so much. I know you do too. So I find incredible about that you knew you weren't going to continue with it, but you stuck it out to the end and got your degree and practice, which I think speaks volumes about your character. All right, so now we stop being a dentist, we stop practicing. What next?
Yeah, I would love to say this. It was an easy what next. The truth is that imagine feeling that, right? You're 24 years old. You've just done 7 years of university. I was very keen as well. When I was a dental student, my goal was it's quite clear. I was I want to be the best dentist in the world. I set myself that goal. And I felt like that was achievable because of just, I knew I could kind of do that. That was a belief that I had. And weirdly, in dentistry, there were ways you could almost, to some extent, objectively prove that in the fields that you were looking to go into. And yeah, I was keen. I was really keen. And so when I decided I was not going to do it and I told people were very surprised. People were very, very surprised. And I was like, shit, what the hell do I do now? I don't know anything. I literally don't know anything else other than dentistry. And so what I did was I worked 3 days a week. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I worked as a dentist in the middle of the countryside. And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I worked across 2 unpaid internships in the middle of London. These were pre-seed startups that I worked in, and I just helped with anything and everything that these like pre-seed idea stage startups who are in accelerator funds needed help with. So I was helping the founding teams with, bits and bobs, basic sales and marketing, just trying to learn the jargon around business. Like it's taken me like 5 years to understand what a fucking product means in business. I never understood that when I remember I went into my first week of work in a startup, and I didn't know what a deck was. I was like, "What's a deck?" Everyone keeps talking about a deck. I was like, "Oh, you mean a presentation? You mean a PowerPoint? That's when you say deck. That's what you mean." I was like, "Wow, okay." I realized then I had a lot to learn. So it's been a long road to learn. But yeah, I did that. I worked 6 days a week, 3 days as a dentist, 3 days as a unpaid intern, just about making enough money as a dentist to be able to fund my lifestyle. To do that, I did that for 6 months. So yeah, took me a while, and then I eventually had enough evidence on my CV that businesses who are looking for junior tech startups that were looking for junior members of staff, one business took a punt on me, and yeah, I worked there for a couple of years, which was awesome, and I had an amazing 2 years working for this small little boutique tech startup in London, learning the ropes, learning from my manager, who is, I was really close to, really good friend and a really good mentor. So yeah, that's how I did it. Just worked myself from the ground up.
How did your parents take it when you broke the news?
I think obviously initially tough, but ultimately my parents, because they've been in the medical field and they'd seen changes in it over the past like 3 decades that they'd worked in it, they could understand the reasons why I was saying this wasn't going to be for me. It had changed tremendously since the 90s, where they had worked through the like late 80s and 90s. Very, very different. You could make more money back then compared to nowadays. So yeah, it was just very clear to me. I was like, if I stayed as a dentist, I don't see how I can provide the life that you gave me as a when I grew up.
Yeah. And then fast forwarding a bit, how do we get to Web3 NFTs? What was your introduction into the space?
Yeah, so I spent the last 7 years working in tech startups. I took a 2-year hiatus where I did traveling for a bit, which was nice. That was good fun. I highly recommend people to do that, to take some time away. And yeah, I did it a little bit later in my life. I was like 28 when I did it. So I went traveling with a bunch of 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 21-year-olds, and felt like a young kid again, which is absolutely epic. And yeah, I did that for worked in tech startups for 7 years. One of my idols for about 13 years now has been Kevin Rose from Proof Collective and Moonbirds. So the founder of Proof. I found him via Tim Ferriss. So when I read the 4-Hour Work Week back in 2008 or 9, he had just started a video series on YouTube with his good friend Kevin Rose. And he did these shows every 2-3 months where him and Kevin would sit down and they would have like a 2-hour podcast chat, and they called it the Random Show. And all they did was chat about, they would have a bit of a format. They would talk about a few physical items that they had picked up and they thought were cool, and they would share them with each other and talk about them and things that they're interested in, talk about like maybe some books, talk about some alcohol that they're interested in, talk about their travels. They did some traveling together, back like, I think in 2011, they went to China. And so I was a huge like Kevin Rose fan from like 13 years ago. And early last year, Tim Ferriss and Kevin Rose were on the podcast. They still do the Random Show every few months, which is epic. Like they've been doing it for like 15 years now. And they started really, the talk of NFTs came up in every single show, and it just got more and more. And they were getting more and more excited about it. And through all of the years that I would follow them, they always referred back to a time in 2008 and 9 when South by Southwest started, back in the beginning of the Web 2 era, in the social media era. And they always talked about the South by Southwest kind of festival being the most exhilarating time that they had all together. So that's when they all met together. It was Gary Vee, Tim Ferriss, Kevin Rose, all of these guys who we know is driving forward NFTs and Web3 now. Last year, I heard them talking about, they felt like what was happening last year felt like what happened in 2008. And they were talking about it with like this invigorated passion. And I was like, because I felt like I'd missed out on Web 2, I was like, I'm not missing out on this. I am not missing out on this. And because I've been in tech, I followed along with it. So I just went down the rabbit hole, started learning about it. I was like, if these guys who are the two entrepreneurs that I look up to the most, if they think that this is the next frontier of tech, I'm going to listen to them. So I did, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole.
What did that look
Sorry
like?
about that. I always feel bad.
No, Tom, I'm loving it, man. We want to learn about Tom, so it's perfect. What does going down the rabbit hole start with? Buying NFTs yourself, or getting into Discords, or what was it for you?
So yeah, not buying NFTs. It was, and full disclosure, I was running a business at the time. I was running a side hustle business, and I had like invested all of my money, or I'd taken all of my crypto that I had made over the last like 3 years, and I'd invested it into a startup. Nice. And long story short, the startup had to fold it in November. It was a wrong idea, but at the wrong time. Good idea, but at the wrong, like 10 years too late. That was a painful lesson to learn. But yeah, I liquidated all of my crypto to fund that. And so it meant that I didn't have any money to be able to buy NFTs. But I had enough. I had a little bit. So I bought a few NFTs. One of the first NFTs I bought was Cade's, one of the NFTs from Cade's collection, from the prequel, which I love, like an artist, one of his art pieces of him in a hoodie and a bandana. That was one of the first. And then really the rabbit hole went from, it was Brett Malinowski, who I'd seen from Sebastian Georgiou, who I'd been following for years on YouTube, who brought Brett onto the channel to talk about NFTs. And so that was how it happened. It went Sebastian Georgiou, Brett Malinowski, Cade Bergman, and now Philip Klinko. Here we are.
And Tom, how did you start your, like, where did the YouTube channel on your side come into it? When did it switch from sort of getting to know the space, knowing that you have an interest, to starting a YouTube channel, becoming an influencer in inverted commas? Don't like to call us influencers, we're just guys talking shit.
Yeah.
Starting your proper brand in the space.
Yeah, I made the decision in November, and that was at the same time it coincided with me wrapping up the company that I had owned. So I wrapped that up, and I didn't want to go get a job. I had quit my full-time job 3 months before, and similar to dentistry, I was like, that is not an option. So I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to force something out of it, and I took a massive gamble, and I started making YouTube videos every day in November, and did that, and kind of just out of sheer faith that if I went hard, I was like, we'll see what happens. And yeah, like the people that I've met over the past 9 months, and the experiences that I've had, the stuff that I've learned, the things that I'm working on right now, yeah, I'm extremely happy that I made that. I took that kind of like what felt like a huge risk, because it was a pretty big risk at the time, at least from a financial perspective, because I didn't have a long runway to give it a crack. I had like a few months, and so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go for this.
That's usually, I mean, first of all, I also traveled a year after school, and I think I agree with you. It's like really highly recommended. Especially, I mean, if you look at my situation now, there's no way I could like tell the wife and kids and the company, guys, I'm going backpacking. I'll see you in a year, right? You can't do that. So I do highly recommend it. But I remember when I got there, it took me a long time. So I went after school. I went to the States for 6 months, and I went to the UK for 6 months.
Awesome.
And the States, I managed to find a job and was working in the pizzeria, and I managed to make it work. But in the UK, I struggled. I didn't have a work permit, and I didn't realize, South Africans, there's no rules really. I didn't realize that like no one would hire me without a work permit there. So I really struggled, and I was
Interesting.
down to my last £50, and I needed about £30 to get to the airport and change my ticket from 2 months later to there. And it's just amazing how when you're at that stage where it's really make or break, how somehow magic happens and you end up turning it into something, which is really incredible. So let's talk about what we're turning it into. I really want to hear about it, that video. If you haven't watched it, what I will do is after the show, I'm going to put a link directly to that video in the description. But if you go to Tom's YouTube, because I did check it out. Ooh, I'm doing a CAD. I'm doing a CAD. All right, it's not going to work because I've actually moved you to eye level. I'll put a link in it. But let's talk about the Summer Club. So guys, basically, Tom is launching very special NFT collection, different to anything you've heard of, called the Summer Club, and I want to hear about it from you, Tom.
Sure, thanks, man. So the Summit Club is an extension of a brand that I've envisaged for as long as I can remember. One of my obsessions, if I tilt my camera just up here, I'm doing this in the mirror. Wow, this is way harder than I expected. That is a poster of Austria where I lived, a place called St. Anton, and I was I'm a very keen skier. I love being in the mountains. I just love being in the mountains. I love being in the hills. I feel it gives me perspective, and it helps me feel small, which I think is really important, and insignificant, which is really, really important. And that the world is a large place and is full of abundance. And it's for us to kind of determine how much we want of life. And it's an extension. So the Summit Club is an extension of a brand that I've wanted to build for years. And this is the first kind of like iteration of the brand. This is the first phase of the brand. So the Summit Club is going to be a Web3 tokenized community for what I call the infinitely curious. So this is for people who have infinite curiosity, which I'm not sure if you can relate to this, but I'm sure you do. But I just love learning stuff. I love learning stuff. I love learning new things. I love challenging myself. I love pushing myself to my limits and then beyond. I've always had an obsession with personal development, seemingly very, very different to a lot of people that I know. Like I'm very aware of that. Like I'm sure people, if they would say, my friends and family, if they were to say, yeah, this is one of the things that I'm obsessed with. One of the other things I'm obsessed with is helping others. Like genuinely, this is totally genuine. And I think where it comes back to why I wanted to do medicine was because I just wanted to help people. Because the thing that drives me is I find that there are people who have different drivers in life. It's either pain drives a lot of people, so pain from past experiences, ambition to some degree, but I feel like ambition is typically linked to some sort of pain. The pain that I feel is guilt. Like I have a huge amount of guilt around what I feel is like the privilege that I've had in my life so far, from growing up, where I grew up, how I grew up. I feel a huge amount of guilt around that. And I have a massive fear that I don't want to waste the privilege that I've been given. And I don't want to I don't want to not pay forward the privilege that I've been given. So if I can help in any way, help people's experience on Earth in any way, that's really all I want to do. And the Summit Club is really all about that. It's about helping others, and the fact that the climb of life, there isn't a summit. The summit is infinite. There is always another summit at the end of the next peak, and there's always going to be a time when you're going to need someone to help you. And the Summit Club is the first phase, an iteration of how I want to build this community. And I personally feel that the NFTs have given the perfect mechanism to be able to do that.
You know, what really struck me there is just how genuine it is. Yeah, I could see, like, first of all, when you said the word Summer Club in the beginning, your whole face lit up. Okay, really and truly, but properly. But I mean, that's incredible. I can see the realness. You know, I interview a lot of founders, and this is not an interview like that at all. This is a friendship thing. But I interview a lot of founders. I consult teams and whatever. And people sometimes say words that they know, like, people want to hear, but they don't mean them. And honestly, I've got a lot of experience in reading people, and I can tell you that that's incredible. So how is the summit going to help people? I know this is just the beginning, but do you picture it as being like literally I'm someone in the community and saying, Tom, I've had a shit day, I need to speak to someone? Like, when you say help people, obviously there's lots of ways you can help people. What are you picturing long term as far as what it becomes?
Yeah, I'm gonna strip back the emotion a little bit and now talk about the kind of reality of it and the mechanics and the business of what I'm trying to build and how this pulls back into Web3. So I'll explain the basic structure, and it's based around two theses. The first one being that, in my opinion, the most rewarding, depends how you define rewarding, but the most consistently rewarding groups that we have seen in NFTs have been ultra curated, exclusive groups of small volume. So Proof Collective, 1,000 members, a floor price of upwards of 100 ETH at one point. The 333 Club by Zeneca, which was designed to help Web3 builders get higher access to consultancy for them to build their own projects, back in the kind of like the middle of last year. Recently, we've seen the Gents Croquet Club, which was from fellow YouTuber Man Gadzi, who was looking to provide a community for aspirational young men and females. There was open to females as well, but a very clear avatar around people who have aspirations of maybe becoming a certain level of entrepreneur in a certain field. In that field, it was marketing agencies. Those communities have been the ones that have stood the relative test of time. And when I talk about that, I'm referring to some extent to the floor price, but mainly to the fact that people haven't want to leave those clubs because of what they've gained from being in them. The second thesis is that group sizes over 100. I really struggle in those communities because I lose information. I lose if I don't go into a Discord after a day and there's more than 100 members, information is hidden, it's dead, it's gone. So what I wanted to create, and this was based on feedback that I got from my group. So I spent the last 4 months one-on-one talking to every single member of my community, like on a call, as many as I could. They were like, yeah, we just want something super intimate so that we don't lose information. We can get access to quality information, get rid of any noise. So there's not like thousands of people just throwing stuff against the wall, and be around a group of people that are highly aspirational and want to be here in Web3 and be part of something cool and interesting. So, yeah, that's why the membership is going to be is only for 69 members. That's the number that I kind of landed on based on feedback from other kind of people in my group, in my community, and also just I built what I wanted. It's a classic entrepreneur kind of story, right? You have a problem, so you build the solution. My problem was I couldn't find a community that I could keep active with because I would just lose access to information. So I'm going to build that. And token gating is going to be the way to get into that. So that's the basic thesis around that, like small size, higher quality information, less noise, and also unlimited access to me whenever people want, because I know that there are people who will be struggling with things. If I don't have the answer, I will know Philip, who potentially can help with an answer, right?
So that's what I loved about your video. Part of it was that you said there, 150 is the number where you can't maintain meaningful relationships with more than 150 people at the same time. Obviously, give and take a few or whatever. And I really love that. And I think that's really true. And to have a small, tight-knit community where everyone knows each other's strengths and weaknesses and can pull off each other. The one thing is that Kate says he needs a dentist. So I know a guy who can help him with that.
Bro,
Tom, can you help Kate?
Well, I'm sad to hear that, bro. I don't know. I assumed you had, like, yeah, I don't know why has the guy got cavities?
I don't know, but I know if you leave it too long, if it gets too deep, you might have to have root canal or something. So, Kate, you got to get to the dentist immediately.
Got to get to the get to the dentist, and yeah, I'm with you. I would, yeah, got to look after those teeth. I've got cavities. So I ate loads of sweets when I was a kid, so I feel the pain literally. So, but yeah.
All right, so Tom, now we've got the 69 people. They've minted. Everyone gets to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. This is the beginning of this journey. What are you picturing stage 2, stage 3, not in order, but just the long-term vision of it? What are you picturing it as being after that?
Great question. So this actually, again, this comes back to a theory that I have around where Web3 is going. My background is consumer retail technology, so helping consumer brands get better access, better information, data from their consumers to understand their buying patterns, to understand their preferences, to understand demographics. So my background is consumer tech. I believe that there are a couple of assumptions, hypotheses that I have. One is that decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, are going to be the one of the core ways in which brands link to their communities, and how communities will actually have a much higher kind of force with in the strategic direction that brands go. And the way that's going to be governed is through DAOs. That's my kind of a hypothesis that I have. I might be completely wrong.
No, I think it's true. If you think of a public company, that's exactly what it is in a way. If you think of a huge public company, they have shareholder meetings, people vote, that's how it's governed,
Exactly. So my theory is that tokenomics through blockchain technology is going to aid the actual governance of that mechanism, and will pull back, will be able to, consumers will be able to take back control through the mechanics around tokenomics. And I think there's going to be a hybrid between traditional corporate governance that we have currently. So public and private limited companies, that's still going to exist. But I think DAOs are going to help help brands connect better with their consumers, which was, at the moment, we have a very hard, there is no intermingling between brands and their consumers. So my theory is that DAOs are going to be part of that. So one of the plays that I'm making is that the Summit Club, we're going to structure the Summit Club from a governance perspective as a DAO. And part of the theory with that is that, one, I want to get experience with the mechanics and operationalization of a DAO, understanding how it works, working through the movement through to mainstream that we're going to face in the next few years. But gaining experience in that, and also giving the people who are going to be members of my group, they are also going to but by just being members of a tight, small DAO, they're going to become experts in DAO architecture and operationalization. Can't say that word. So that's a theory, that's a hypothesis that I have.
And then provide that as a service to companies going forward.
Potentially. So the one of the beauties of a DAO structure, and this is something when you ask me about my vision, I've got a short-term vision, which may be unfounded, but the short-term vision is that from the evidence that I've seen, the other DAOs that have existed that I look to for a bit of inspiration. So some DAOs that I look to are like social DAOs like Friends with Benefits, or media DAOs like Forefront or Rect. Those DAOs have documented their journey over the past like couple of years. And it's really cool because you can, as publicly, you can go and see and read about the challenges that they faced. One of the challenges that Forefront faced was that they felt like they didn't have clarity in a community output when they first started. So when the community got together initially, it was like for the first 9 months, 6 to 9 months, it was messy because there wasn't any like guiding light of where they would want to go. So they one of the learnings that they had was like, if you're going to start these types of things, start with the intent to have some sort of collective output that you can work towards. And the collective output that I think that the Web3 space needs is an independent public review service, where consumers can come in and they can read public-facing reviews on Web3 tools, platforms, and services, and trust that the source is a trusted source and independent source. The analogy that I give is the Michelin Guide of Web3. So the Michelin Guide, for those that might not know, was originally a guide in France that helped people back in like the 20s and 30s. It was a little paper guide that people would have in their car. And it was just a guidebook that would tell people where restaurants and service stations were on the highways and the roads of France. Now it is now a much more prestigious kind of entity where restaurants are given Michelin stars based on the quality of the service that they provide. And my feeling is that in Web3 we have innovation every single day, but we don't have an independent source that can help with the auditing and reviewing of tools and platforms and services.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's really cool. Obviously, we've got a limited time here.
Sure, yeah.
How do guys find out? So, I mean, there's so much more I could ask, but we'll be for the next 12 hours. How do guys who are interested find out more? What is the best way to find out more?
Yeah, so first up, the best place is to go to my Twitter. That has all my links. So the Tom Youngs is my Twitter. It then has links in my bio. It has links to the Summit Club, which is what the club will, the tokenized club will be. If you follow links to there, it will take you. There's links to a website which is Summit Labs. Summit Labs is the legal and corporate anchor for the Summit Club, which is a DAO. DAOs require some sort of legal anchor, and the Summit Labs is that legal anchor. It will take you through to a website where you can see, I've kind of got a pitch deck on the website which takes you through my vision, and you can read it yourself. I would just read that. There's also a tweet thread on Tom Young's on my profile pinned to the top, and also the Summit Club. So if you read the tweet thread, it'll again show you my thought process behind the club. And then finally, I would recommend watching the video that Philip referred to, because I'm an audio visual learner. If you're like me, you might enjoy that. It's just 10 minutes long and gives you a little bit of an insight into where we're going with this. We haven't talked about one of the coolest mechanics, which we'll leave on like a bit of a cliffhanger, but I haven't seen anyone hand create NFTs yet, physical art. I'm going to be hand creating my one of one NFTs that token members will be able to, they will get the physical copy, and they will be getting the physical copy of their club number. So like a sports team, David Beckham had the number 7, Tom Brady, I think, had the number 4, whatever. Michael Jordan had like 23. If you're a member of the Summit Club, you're going to get your club number. I'm going to hand create that. And that will be one of one art, my first ever one of one art collection. There's only going to be 111 of those. I think that's cool.
I think that's cool.
I like collecting art. So yeah, there's many reasons to consider joining. There's going to be a staged process to get in. The best thing to do is follow the links to enter the Summit Labs Discord, which you'll be able to find through Tom Young's Twitter profile or the Summit Club. Come and join us on in the Discord, and that's where I'll be like dropping communications about next stages and what the different phases are to be able to potentially apply to be a member.
Incredible. Well, Tom, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. To all the viewers, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to both me and to Tom. And we definitely will do a more informal one again when we can just chat more and get to know each other more. Thank you, guys. Keep well.